Awesome. Welcome to another episode of One Starfish. Really excited. Our mission is to help change the world one person at a time. Make sure to rate, review, subscribe, all of those things so we can get the word out to more people. Today, I get to meet an amazing lady. Well, you get to meet an amazing lady. Also, Gail Kraft. Gail Kraft is an empowerment coach, she's a podcaster, she's a motivational speaker, mainly reaching out to women who are ready for a change in their life. She's been doing this for the last decade. I'm really excited to learn from her and some of her past. I've already learning a little bit. So excited to have you here, Gail. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Angela. This is fantastic. Happy to be here, happy to share, hopefully, dump some wisdom on you and your listeners and help someone make a change.
I love it. That's exactly what we're here for. So what motivated you to make the change a decade ago into this world of empowerment and public speaking and podcasting and helping other people?
So I'll go back a few years before I started this. Okay. And my past experience has been that of corporate America, and a very, very successful, high-level positions until I wasn't. And I found myself, moving 3,000 miles to the West Coast and fired. And and went through a metamorphosis of, anger, hate, all of the things that you go through, until I couldn't stand myself anymore. Right. I looked in the mirror and said, this woman's got to change. If I don't like me, I'm surprised I have a friend. And I went into business coaching, business process. I got certified in that arena first, and discovered that people first. And so I said, I'm going to get me this thing called a life coaching certification to supplement the business process. Right. That was what I was thinking. And as soon as I started, I said to the gentleman that was training me, I said, listen, this is the approach that I use, why I was successful as a business leader to begin with. This is how I treated my staff. And I am drawn to this. I am born to do this. And so I no longer was chasing a dream. I was being pulled by a dream. If you can understand, there's a difference. Totally. Right. And so I'm like, okay, so I'm going to stop that business and start doing this business, and have spent the last decade not only being a coach, but learning every year. I mean, I'm NLP master trained, which took me about 4.5 years to do. I've got this thing called a soul realignment practitioner certification. So I get a little woo-woo for those who are ready to go woo-woo. If you're not, that's fine. I won't drag you there. But if you're ready to go, I can take that trip with you.
Cool.
Right.
Sounds fun.
Oh my God, it was so much fun. And I've spent many years working with motivational speakers. And so I have been studying and practicing this craft and applying it to myself as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's where it really all starts, right? Like, in order to help other people, you have to help yourself first and grow. And through that, it sounds like a really tough time in your life where you really hit like rock bottom. And for a lot of people, they do have to hit that rock bottom in order to go up. I guess that's the word for it.
Right.
What are some things like, I don't know who's all listening for this and who will be listening, but I'm sure there's people that are close or hitting rock bottom, especially in the time that's going on around us for the last couple of years. What would you say to them are some ways that you got yourself out of that beyond just getting tired with yourself? What are some tangible things you did to kind of start to step up out of that feeling? I guess.
That's really interesting. So I think the key, through all of the anger and all of the pain, is the thing that I felt the most was disempowerment. Right. I felt not in control of my destiny, even though I thought I was in control with all my anger and all my reaction. And that's the thing. I was reacting and not responding. Right. So what are some of the things that I did? I get real with myself, and I may not be real with you. I may not tell you the truth, but, tell yourself the truth first. And honestly learn to understand your motivations. And so I started working on, so what's my intention? Why am I doing this? What is it that I want? And is this the best way to have the outcome that I'm looking for? Is this the best way? So I started asking myself some very strong questions. I also went down a path of forgiveness, right? And that's forgiving myself for being an asshole.
Yeah. Yeah.
First, right?
Yeah.
Because I
Gotta
played a
do that.
role in this. I played a role, right?
Yeah.
and and that's okay. Sometimes we are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And recognize that, hey, maybe someone doesn't like you right now because look at what came out of your mouth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so getting real with who I was and who I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so forgiving myself and then forgiving others for being who they are. Forgive them for, what did Christ say? And I'm not a big religious person, but forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Forgive them. Forgive people for not being aware. Forgive people for not being enlightened. Give them honor for being on the path that they're on. It's not your job to fix them. It's your job to
Mm.
fix you and then show up fixed. Right? So that um so learning about that, and then I went through affirmations didn't work for me.
Mm.
Okay. And then I went through declarations did not work for
I
me.
am
Yeah, I
statements.
am
Yeah.
bullshit, right? Because your subconscious mind says, you're right, I
I
am a
am not.
millionaire. Your subconscious mind goes, have you looked at your checking account lately? Right? Right?
Right.
And you lie to yourself and that doesn't work, right? But I stumbled on this thing called the empowering process, or the empowering questions. And the book that I wrote, The Empowering Process, is nothing but a bunch of empowering questions.
Mm.
And empowering questions work for me. And so you can try this. They have a presupposition that you're already doing it.
Mm-hmm.
They're in the present,
Mm-hmm.
and there's action oriented questions. And so it's
Mm.
how else, what more, who else? And so for the millionaire thing,
Yeah.
right? The question would be something like, what more can I do right now to take yet one more step closer to my goal to financial freedom every day of my life? So what more? So your subconscious goes, what more? Okay, so you're working on this. And so you start to open up your blinders to being
Mm-hmm.
aware of what else is out there. So once you can believe yourself, then you
Mm-hmm.
look for the possibilities that you're not seeing at the moment.
So true. And
So,
I heard that like the quality of your life is based on the quality of the questions you ask yourself.
right,
So
right,
what questions are you asking yourself is
right,
yeah, that's a good one.
right.
Yeah.
And so that was huge in shifting my life,
Mm-hmm.
my perspective, my outcomes, um, myself, myself. And then being vulnerable is probably the hardest thing any of us can do.
Mm-hmm.
Because being vulnerable means that you are putting your heart out there and you
Mm-hmm.
trust that it's not going to be stomped on,
Mm.
right?
After it's been
And
stomped on a few times, because that's just part of life,
as it's
right?
been
Yeah.
crushed, and I mean, I
Yeah.
have another story for you that is crushing for me. That was the big, huge, even bigger than the other lesson. But what I learned is that um, I I can be vulnerable, and it's okay if you stomp on it because I'm taking care of my own heart,
Mm.
right? And that takes a lot of work, folks. A lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like Brene Brown talks about that all the time.
I adore her.
Yes, she's amazing. So guys, if you
Just
haven't checked her out, check her out.
check
Um,
her out, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And yeah, just being out there. So do you want to share the story that you really conquered, it sounds like?
Oh, okay. So I told you I worked with motivational speakers, and I had this one particular person that I worked with, um, and I would crew her events, and I just admired everything that she had to teach in her approach, and thought she was fantastic. So she moved to Oregon and wanted to build on her site a retreat center.
Hmm.
So I offered to be her project manager on that. And she offered me the position with the caveat that I was to move,
Right.
which meant that I sold my home, closed down my business, left my clients, left my friends, and moved from sunny San Diego to freezing friggin' cold
Oregon.
Oregon, right? Um, and in the process of doing that, another person moved from Nevada she was to do her marketing. And we became roommates, and neither one of us did anything that we were hired to do. And it was a very caustic, it was very bad. It was very bad. I now look back and see the wounds that she brought to her business, right? But at the time, it was awful. And to the point where one day I was on the couch in my apartment and I thought I was having a heart attack. That's how much she broke my heart.
So stressed.
Oh, the stress was terrible. And I was ready to call 911. And I laid there and said, no, what I need to do is, I know this is a broken heart. And, it's my fault for putting my belief in everything into someone else rather than myself. It's my fault for not researching how she treated her staff before accepting this position. I would never have done that in a corporate setting.
Right.
So I took responsibility for my piece.
That's awesome.
Right. And that was healing. I mean, in fact, I said, I'm not leaving the situation until I resolve the core reason why I'm doing this, because I never want to fall, want to fall into this again. Right. And I did that. And so my last act was calling her accountant, because I had put together a 30-day action plan for her that I did not get paid for. And I called her accountant. I said, where's my check? I sent you the invoice. I sent her the product. And she said, well, I was told to put a hold on the check. And I said, well, that's illegal. You cut the check, and you cut it now. And so she did. And then I sent an email saying, bye, I'm leaving. And I packed my bags. I moved back to San Diego with no job.
No house.
No house, nothing. I mean, I was ready to sell pencils on the street. But that's when I wrote the book, The Empowering Process.
Wow.
And I had, my goals were, this was in April. My goals were to pay off my credit cards, because, of course, all of that cost me money. By the end of the year, to get my business back up and running, and to be in a luxurious setting. By the end of the year, I had my $20,000 in credit cards paid off. I was living in a gorgeous luxury apartment, and I had my client base kicking back in.
Wow.
All through Empowering Questions. They work.
That is so cool and empowering for anyone listening, and taking that 100% responsibility for what is your fault, but at the same time, not taking the responsibility for what isn't your fault. I think that's key. Really key. And a lot of times we take on, especially women, take on way too much responsibility, and it's like all of our fault, instead of realizing, hey, in this case, it wasn't all your fault. This was a bad work situation that you allowed it's like a bad relationship, or anything. I personally looked at that in relationships where I'm like, okay, these have been not the healthiest relationships. Who's the common denominator? I am. And I'm not taking the pressure from them. They still did what they did, but that I allowed it is on me.
And there's codependency.
Correct.
There's codependency. Yeah. And so that's really, really interesting, because right after that, I had a position where I was coaching a new manager, or was a new director. And he was very uncomfortable in his role. And one of the things that he did that I had to really work with him on was take responsibility when it wasn't his fault. Now, as a leader, if someone in my team screwed up, and I did this, I would literally physically stand between the accuser and my staff and say, it's my fault. I obviously did not train them properly, did not give them the right tool. This is my fault, and I'll fix it.
Yeah.
He would take the responsibility in a much different manner. He would take responsibility as though he had done it, and then he would fix it. And so my training with him was about, all right, we need to understand there's a difference between accountability and responsibility, right? You are accountable to your team. They're responsible to get their job done, right? And so let's talk about that. And you never take the blame. You take accountability, but not blame. And there's such a difference. And he was blame, 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 blame. So I created a training for him and his team called the Blame Game. Right?
Yeah. That sounds like a good one. I like
That
that.
was
Yeah.
fun. That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so cool. And make sure, like I said, we'll have links and all of this stuff in the footnotes. So make sure to check out the book and check out what Gail does. I'm excited to actually check it out because empowering questions are, like I said, are very important. Like, what are the questions that you ask yourself
Right.
are very important in how your life moves forward. So I love that. That's kind of where it's at. And where do you want to see yourself in the next, like, what's your purpose? What's your mission? Sounds like you've been traveling. You're kind of living a little bit of, I guess, what people would say a dream life. Like you're
Right.
doing what you love what you
Right.
do, you have money, you have success, you have all those things. Where do you see it going and where do you want to see it going?
I'm exactly where I want to be.
I love it.
Right. Where do I see it? I just see it growing. That's all. I just see me traveling more. I actually started traveling in the middle of COVID.
Yep. Oh, you
I
just
went
started in COVID. Okay.
right,
Yeah.
2020, that summer. My son and his family grabbed an RV and I hopped on with them and we traveled the country in an RV.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah. It was fantastic, fantastic. And then last summer, I bought a new car and then I put 10,000 miles on my car, traveling across the country and visiting people. And then this winter, I got out of the snow and went and visited family for the holidays and then went down to Florida and spent a few weeks down there. And now I'm in San Diego and I head back home next week.
That's so cool. And I mean, it's doing what you love. If you don't love to do it, like if you don't like to travel, don't travel. If you like to travel, travel. Like it's building
Right.
that life of whatever it is. And I think it starts with it, and my opinion anyway, like is what having what you want on paper, like really, like you said, it's pulling you instead of pushing you. What do
Right.
you really want? Where are you actually wanting to go in life? What are you being called to do? And it sounds like obviously that's what's happened to you and you've stepped into your calling, which is why it's not only fun, but you're successful at it because
Right.
you have a drive that other people might not have. What are some, and we'll wrap up here soon, but what are some tips that you kind of like to tell people when they're struggling, when they're working toward that, when they're in those things? You've given a few out, which is awesome. We don't want to give all the secrets of all the book and everything else away, of course. But what are some things else that you would suggest that people do, like morning routines? What are some things that you find that are really like meditation that you find are really helpful for centering and moving out of, say, negative situations?
I think for me, it's really important to determine what works for you. All right. So I use a bunch of different tools with my clients to see what resonates with them. So for some people, meditation, I do envisioning,
Mm,
right? Before I go to bed. I actually will say, okay, so here's the nugget, the issue that I'm trying to resolve, right? Help me, universe, God, whatever, pray,
yep.
whatever works for you. But I really ask for guidance in resolving this. And then in the morning, whatever comes to mind, sometimes, I mean, I used to do Facebook Lives like right out of bed. Right.
Mm.
Whatever comes to mind. Okay. You want me to talk about that? All right. I'm going to talk about that. Literally, my hair is a mess. No makeup on. Like right now, I am no makeup. My hair's a mess. I'm in a sweatshirt because it's a little chilly. Right.
And she still looks beautiful if you guys are on podcast and not YouTube.
Right. And so it's just what is driving me right now. Right. And I don't fight it. So, so meditate. And if you think you don't meditate, you do. We all do. Um, Try different processes because not everybody does well with the Deepak Chopra. I don't. He gives
Mhm.
me an Om and I'm like, well, that's boring. That doesn't get me anywhere. But I do well with guided meditation. Some people don't do well with guided meditation
Mhm.
because of the noise, right? So then focus on a sound, right? So there are different ways to meditate, and all that is calming your thoughts, not suppressing them, letting them come in and letting them go out,
Mhm.
right? Just letting them flow. And then breathing, just focus on your breathing because that calms you. And when you're calm, and so one of the tools is never make a choice or a decision from any heightened state, whether it's anger, sadness, fear, love, right? Your state is heightened and you will not, I mean, I would love that woman that I went and worked for. Did I make the right choice? No, right? So calm down, step away, look at things from different perspectives. And that is also a tool that I highly recommend, right? What would your best friend say about this? Right? And listen to that. What would someone who doesn't know you say about this? Right? And so you look at things from your eyes, from someone else's eyes, from a group's eyes who have no attachment whatsoever, right? And be honest about what would they say? And then you take all of that information and you can make a choice based on that information, not on how you feel. Right. And how you feel, not your gut. And that's another thing. Learn the difference between your heart and your gut. Because your heart loves everything. And your gut says, maybe not.
Follow the gut.
Right. Follow the gut. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I love that. That's awesome. Yeah. 3 final questions before we wrap up, and then anything you have for last points you want to kind of add. Number 1 question is, so you kind of went into some of this already. If someone is looking for their purpose and they're like you found your purpose and you love it, and they're like still looking for it, what is one sentence you would say that possibly could help them find it faster?
Oh, the easiest, no, it's never easy to find your purpose. Sorry, it's okay that you're struggling. We all struggle, but be open to possibilities of something totally from left field showing up. And oftentimes what you think is simple is really your calling, and it's not simple to everybody else.
I like that. What you think is simple might be your purpose.
Right.
Look at it. Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's a good one. Number 2 question, what's your favorite quote and why?
I can't give you one favorite quote because I love them. Anything Brene Brown has to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And why? Because she's vulnerable and there's science behind her words. Right. She examines and tests and gets curious about everything. So I guess anything that she has to say, because she comes from a place of curiosity.
Do you remember any quotes off the top?
No, not off the top of my head.
Check out Brene Brown.
Right. Check out Brene Brown or my LinkedIn site, because I have her quotes all over the place.
Okay. Yeah. Or Gail's site, which we'll have like I said, we'll have that in the show notes. And number 3 question, what is one word or sentence that you want on your gravestone?
The one that I want on my gravestone. Oh, Gail fearlessly went forward, and the hell with the results.
I love that. That's an awesome one. That's so cool. Are there any final things that you would like to say before we close out?
Yeah. You are deserving. I think for me, my experience with my clients, male or female, by the way, it is that feeling of that lack of self-esteem where we kind of anchor in and get stuck in. We don't believe we can. We don't believe we deserve. We believe we should, right? And when you can get past that, especially if you think it's okay for someone else but not okay for you, why the hell not? Right? Find the reasons why you should or could or can, rather than you shouldn't or couldn't or can't.
I love that. That's, yeah, so good. Make sure, like I said, to follow Gail, to tag us on Instagram, rate, review, share, and definitely check out some of Gail's work and see where it can empower you to change a life today as we go out. Because if we all change one life, we will make a big difference in this world, and this world
one at a time.
One at a time. Exactly. Thank you so much, Gail, for your time. Really enjoyed this.
Angela, thank you.
We'll get a lot of time.